been putting off this video for a while now, so figured now's a good time to get it out there. Hi, my name is Ariana Ammons. I am a 28-year-old professional dancer here in New York City, and I am currently battling stage 4 gastric cancer. I wanted to tell my story because it's very rare. It's very strange. Every time I go to a doctor or a therapist now, that's strange, that's rare, that doesn't happen, that's unique. When I said I wanted to be one of a kind, not what I meant. But if me getting this story out there can help anyone in a similar state or bringing awareness to anything, then it's worth it. A few disclaimers though. This is just my story. Everyone's story is different. Everyone's circumstances are different. Everyone's cancer treatment, hospitals, doctors, everything is different. So this is purely mine. Don't try to diagnose me from my story, and I won't try to diagnose anybody else. So with that, let's begin. So back in May 2025, I was going through the final life stages with my senior dog, and I noticed that my left underarm was starting to swell, and I could feel the lymph node underneath. It felt like a ball every time I put my arms down. It was painful. Usually I had been able to feel it before, but it had never swollen like that and had never been painful. So I reached out to a primary care physician who was able to get me in with no insurance because, like many other young Americans, I didn't have insurance. I didn't really find a reason to have it because I was otherwise very healthy. I never really went to the doctor. I didn't really have any health issues to worry about. So I didn't really need it. So I go, he takes a look at it, says that, yep, it's swollen. If you really want, if you're really concerned about it, I can send you somewhere to get an ultrasound just to make sure it's not something weird. He knew of a place that had small out of pocket to get an ultrasound, and I was like, sweet. So I go in, do the ultrasound, the tech looks at it, he says, yep, it's swollen, it's pretty large, but it has all the characteristics of being benign. The shape and everything looks meh. He said there's multiple reasons why it could have been swollen. Ingrown hair from shaving, infection, if I was sick and I was getting over something, if I was stressed, given everything I was going through with my dog, I was like, okay, I guess, but kind of in your soul, and you feel it and you're like, that's not right. So I went on my way. I ended up getting some antibiotics to help with the swelling, and it did. The swelling of my underarm went down, but then my left breast started to swell. And that's when I was like, an ingrown hair won't do that. An infection won't do that. Something's wrong. So I go back to the primary care physician, have him look at it, and he says, I really, really, really think you should get insurance. Because if this turns out to be something, you don't want to be shelling out money like this and put that financial burden on yourself. So get insurance, and then I'll get you in to see someone again. And I said, okay. I had about a month in between June and July. And in the meantime, I went to a Stray Kids concert. I went twice. Once by myself, once with my sister. And that concert was probably the last time in the next 6 months that I would actually be happy. So July finally rolls around, and I go back into the doctor to get another ultrasound. This time, my doctor, his name was Dr. Barry Burson. We love Dr. Barry Burson. He did the ultrasound, took a look at it, and goes, "That's weird. It's just large enough. The lymph node is just large enough to be highly suspicious. So what we're going to do is we're going to take a biopsy of it. We're also going to biopsy the spot in your breast, just to rule out anything." And he also wanted me to get a CT scan. So we do the CT scan. That, he said, besides the swelling, obviously, on this side, nothing else is out of the ordinary. Okay. Do the biopsy. And I actually had a show the day I did the biopsy, and I was like, "Can I still do my show?" He said, "Yeah, you can still do it. Just take it easy." And I said, "No, I won't be doing that, but okay." And you can actually see it. You can see the bruise from the biopsy in some of the pictures. So up until this time, I still didn't have any symptoms. Like, besides the swelling, no nausea, no fatigue, no getting sick, no weight loss. So anytime they would ask me these questions, I'd be like, "Nope, no, nothing's wrong besides this. I don't feel any different." All right. So finally get the results back, and the spot in my breast was negative. It was like a fibroadenoma or something. And my lymph node came back inconclusive. So he said, "What I'm going to do is I'm going to send you to my friend, who is kind of she can help you more in this case." So he sends me to New York Cancer and Blood with Dr. Panzera. And he would still call me to check up. So we are big fans of Dr. Barry Burson. So I finally go in to go see Dr. Panzera at New York Cancer and Blood, and I remember I was trying so hard to not let the name of the facility freak me out, because I was like, no, I'm only 27. I that can't be something I'm concerned about. It doesn't run in my family. So I had to put it out of my mind that was even an option. And that way I could kind of focus on the appointment itself. And I had my friend come with me, and that way I could listen and she could write down and kind of catch anything that I didn't. And so I go in to see her. We take some blood, and I explain to her what's been going on. At this time, my breast is still swelling. It was kind of taking on the characteristics of being fake. So it wasn't just swelling, it was getting firmer. So I was trying to explain to her, I was like, it's my lymph node, it's getting firmer, it's getting larger compared to this one. I have a small chest, and so the fact that this was getting so much larger is very obvious. And she took a look at it and she goes, "I see what you mean." And her saying that was like a breath of fresh air, because I had been worried, going through all of this, hearing all these stories of women who go into these doctors with all these concerns and they just kind of get brushed off. And so immediately kind of having someone validate what I was going through was so great. So great. And so she takes a look at it and she says, we want to get an MRI, another CT, we're going to get a PET scan, and we're going to take your lymph node out. All right, cool, let's go. So we do everything. All the scans come back fine. Even the PET scan, which, if you don't know what a PET scan does, it shows where there is cell regrowth. So the way that she described it was, even if you have like an injury, because there's cell regrowth there, it could light up on the PET scan. But this is a way to see kind of what we're looking at. And so do the PET scan. She said there's a little bit of activity here, a little bit in your uterus, but other than that, it's fine. So we made sure everything was fine with the uterus, everything was fine. Do the CT, do the MRI, same thing. Everything looks fine, except it being swollen. Okay. So we do the surgery. Meet with the surgeon. She explains everything. We go and do the surgery, and she told my roommate who came with me that I had very soft nodes, which I guess is a good thing. So, once again, it's not something we should be worried about. I had a follow-up with her a few weeks after that, and I still hadn't heard anything from my doctor at this point. And I was getting kind of nervous because I was like, why aren't you telling me anything? What's going on? And the day before, I had a rehearsal. And my friend told me, they said, oh, well, my parents always said no news is good news. If it was bad, they would call you in. I said, yeah, you're right. And that wasn't the case. I go in the next day and takes a look at the incision, says everything looks fine, and she looks at me and she goes, has Dr. Panzera called you yet? And her saying that kind of made me go, fuck. No, she hasn't. And she goes, well, it's cancer. We just don't know what kind. And I was alone in this appointment because it was just supposed to be a checkup of my incision. There was no reason for someone else to go with me, and I had work later. And I managed to hold it together for the rest of that time. And I walked out of there, called my mom, and just cried. Just cried. Because I didn't understand how that could happen. And to have, it's one thing to kind of have a little, doomsday voice in your brain saying, oh, it could. And then having a confirmation. And I called out of work because I wasn't going to go to work after that. And I called my sister, who was at home, who I live with. And she asked if I needed someone, and I said, I just want to be alone right now. And so I went to Central Park, and I sat down under a tree, and it was a beautiful day, and I just cried. I said, how can a day so great turn so horrible so quickly? I ended up having a friend come and meet me in Central Park, and she sat with me. And it was just kind of there. that's the biggest kind of thing for me, is just to be there. So, started feeling a little better, went home, and my sister and my roommate, along with 3 of my childhood friends, we all just kind of had a cuddle pile on the couch. No one talked about it. I didn't want to talk about it. I just wanted people there. And it's very important to have those people, because if those people had not been here, it would have gone so differently. My mental state would not have survived without them. So once I had gotten that confirmation, I ended up going back to Dr. Panzera, who kind of talked me through next steps, and she wanted to run a few more tests on the lymph node itself. She wanted to do genetic testing, molecular testing, trying to find out where this thing could come from, because all we knew was that it was a signet cell, and that's it. So she said, currently it was classified as a signet cell cancer of unknown primary. All right, which basically just means they don't know where it came from. So she ended up sending me to Memorial Sloan and Kettering here in New York City with Dr. Seidman, who's a breast specialist. And her words were, more eyes is better than less. And I am not so vain as to think I know it all. So we're going to collaborate. Which, having a doctor tell you that they understand that they're not all knowing, is also just great. And having one of the top rated cancer facilities right down the road from you here in the States was good too. So I go and I meet with Dr. Seidman, and he drew up this whole diagram, this whole timeline of treatment, gave me a diagram of the breast and how different kinds of cancer react certain ways. He was writing out legal terms, putting trademark next to it in case I was gonna, I don't know, scan it. But he gave me all these paper, hand-drawn. And something we talked about, which wasn't for me, but in case it's something that someone's concerned about, they talk about egg preservation because chemotherapy can affect your fertility. So that's always an option if anyone is concerned about still wanting to have kids. Like I said, not for me, but so we go in, basically have a treatment set up. Cool, we're gonna start soon. Go back in to see Dr. Panzera, and she goes, actually, we had a test done, and it's not a diagnostic test. It's not a test that we like hang our hat up on. But this test came back with an 89% match to gastric cancer. And I remember her saying that, and I was like, what do you mean? It's not in my stomach, it's in my breast. Wouldn't it be breast cancer? Not gastric? I don't know how that works. And so basically she wanted to do an endoscopy just to make sure. All right. So we go do the endoscopy. Didn't see anything in the stomach. Cool, great. We're going to move forward with the breast cancer treatment. And because with cancer of unknown primary, basically with treatment wise, they're like general drugs that you can take that have like an all-around effect to many different kinds. So that's what I was going to do. And they're like, actually, let's push it back again. We're going to do another endoscopy with ultrasound this time, because the way gastric cancer works, it can either be a tumor in or on the stomach, or the cells actually make your stomach lining thicken, and that's not something they can see in a regular endoscopy. It has to be done with an ultrasound. And so we go in there, and they do it, come out of surgery, and the surgeon says, I took a biopsy just because. That way they had something. But I would be very surprised if it was gastric. Okay. So let's go ahead with the breast cancer treatment. And the day before I was supposed to start, I got a call saying that the biopsy came back positive, that it was gastric cancer. So now I have been supposed to start treatment twice. And now I'm getting sent to a different doctor, still with an MSK, but now a gastric specialist. And I was starting to get frustrated because I was like, what do you mean? So I go in, meet with Dr. Koo. I meet with my surgeon, my gastric surgeon, Dr. Lou. And I remember I still hate her appointments. Nothing against her. Like, she is great in her field. But she tells you how it is. She tells you the facts. And I didn't like hearing that. So I did not like going to her appointments. So go in there and we come up with a new game plan to try to see how this gastric cancer is happening. So I had to go in and I do a laparoscopy, which basically they make little incisions on your stomach and they blow you up with air. That way they can see all your organs in there, and then they can take samples of like my my abdomen wall to try to see if there are signet cells present in these areas, to try to see if it's spread or where it is. And along with the laparoscopy, they also did another endoscopy to see if they can biopsy the same site and other sites to see where it is. And then all those tests came back negative. Every single one. Nothing was in my other organs. Wasn't in my abdomen wall. They biopsied the exact same spot in my stomach, and that came back negative. And at this point, I was getting so frustrated. I was like, do I have it or do I not? Because, you know, all these doctors are saying everything's fine, everything's fine, everything's fine. By the way, you have cancer. Everything's fine, everything's fine, everything's fine. Just kidding. Maybe you don't have it. Just kidding. No, it's not there, but it's not there, but it's not there, but it is here, but it's not there. And I was at my wit's end. October, all this happened in October. October was easily the worst month I've ever had, because I was in that hospital almost every other day. I was getting all these tests done. I was getting no answers, or I was getting conflicting answers, or I was just getting bad news. And, you know, meeting with the surgeon and her telling me the logistics of gastric, she's telling me all this other stuff. So I'm getting in my head, and I'm like, am I 1 foot out the door? What's going on? Because the way you're talking right now makes it seem like I'm already out. And mind you, I still don't have symptoms. Nothing. My blood work is fine. Nothing about me has changed except for this swelling. And so I was getting so angry. I was getting so angry. And so we go do more tests. They had to do a biopsy of the lymph node again. Did a breast MRI with an MRI guided biopsy. Did 2 skin biopsies. did biopsy of the other breast. So at this point, I'm all cut up. And right before that, I was told this is going to be a part of my life for the foreseeable future. So we went ahead and put a port in. If you don't know what a port is, it's just a little medical device that's kind of threaded through arteries to go to your heart. And that's a different way you can get treatment versus just in your vein. So at this point, from someone who has rarely gone to the doctor to someone who basically lives at this hospital was so hard. And I ended up having to take time off of work because I was missing so much work because all these tests were running over and they're overlapping, and I just couldn't work. And then with all the surgeries, I couldn't lift anything. I couldn't move. I couldn't exercise. And someone who is a very athletic person and someone who prides themselves in their strength, suddenly having all that ripped away at the same time while all this is going through, I was so depressed. October fucking sucked. It's my birthday month too. So the results for all the biopsies came back. Still found it in the lymph node. That we knew. Found it in the breast. New spot. But still kind of that we knew. It was not found in the right breast. It was not found in the skin on the inside of the breast. But it was found in the skin at the top of the breast. So, the final diagnosis was stage 4 gastric cancer. And I remember hearing that and I was like, what the fuck do you mean stage 4? Aren't you supposed to have symptoms if you're this far along? Aren't you supposed to have something? And I think that's been the most frustrating part of this whole thing, is just the lack of symptoms. If I was having some symptoms, then fine. I could maybe believe it, but it's the lack of symptoms that was really frustrating. So, and then, you hear stage 4 and you're like, great, time to say goodbye. And my friend put it into perspective, basically saying it doesn't mean you're dying, it just means it traveled a little farther. I said, okay. So that helped. And I have to think about that anytime I start to spiral. So the theory is that it started in my stomach. Somehow, some way, my body just killed it in my stomach by itself, but not before it spread up into my breast, which then went into my lymph node, which then went into the dermal layer. And going into the dermal layer is what caused that thickening, which caused the breast to swell. So that's the working theory. My breast at this time was 3 times its size, with my right one being the same. I was binding it because I was so uncomfortable. I was so pent up because I couldn't move. I couldn't exercise. And they had wanted me to start treatment on my birthday. And I said no. So we started the day after. So on my birthday, I went to the zoo. And then the next day I started treatment. Which, in one case, it was nice to finally start. Because having pushed this back twice already, I was getting antsy. I was like, if this is cancer, shouldn't I be starting treatment as soon as possible? Why are we prolonging it so much? Why are we waiting for it to get worse? Why are we waiting for something else to happen? And so finally just starting was just better. So yeah, that's where I've been at since then. The thing that's baffling everybody is the fact that it didn't spread down, which is how gastric usually spreads. It spreads to the surrounding areas. It spreads to the nearby lymph nodes, and then your liver, your kidney, or your ovaries, or something like that. And they don't skip all that and just go up. That's what is kind of baffling everybody. But yeah, I've been doing treatment. After my restrictions from surgery all lifted, I started dancing again. It's dancing where I can. I was able to do Nutcracker. I was the Mouse Queen. And I'm just trying to find that joy in dancing again, and being thankful that I have a body that can still move. It's been really hard having my body change because I haven't been as active, obviously. And it's been even harder kind of having to halt my career for this, which is such a first world problem. Like, oh, woe is me, I can't work anymore. But, working so hard in a career, and then suddenly all your momentum that you've been building just comes to a grinding halt, sucks. I can't audition for shows because I have to stay in the city, and no one's going to hire someone who has to be out every other week. And so, trying to give myself grace where I can. My treatments have been going well. I haven't really had any adverse side effects. Slight nausea, fatigue. I've had 8 sessions, and only one of them really was awful. One I was really not great, but even then, people have had worse. So I take my wins where I can get them, and I have my gratefulness that it's not worse. Had a CT scan beginning of the year just to see how everything's progressing. My breast is pretty much back to its regular size. Still a little firm, but to be expected. I had slight swelling in my right lymph node, but they said it's nothing to worry about. And I'm trying to believe them because, as you just heard, I've heard that before. One thing that has been hard is I'm getting edema in my arm, which is basically the swelling where your lymph node's not working as well. There's a blockage, so it can't drain the toxins. So my full range of motion is limited. And so we're working on that in physical therapy now. And I have PET scan next week. And yeah, 3 sessions left until then. So I've been really lucky that my insurance has covered everything so far. They tried not to. They tried to deny my entire chemo, saying it was not medically necessary. So I'm grateful that my hospital has their own kind of agency that fights with insurance, and I haven't had to. However, I am relying heavily on my GoFundMe because I can't work as a bartender as I have been because I can't hold the shakers because of cold sensitivity, and I can't run around as much because of fatigue. So my GoFundMe really helps me pay my bills as much. And I heavily rely on that, which was hard because I don't like relying on other people. I don't like asking people for help. But it is something I need right now. That's the only way I've been able to pay rent. So yeah. With his surgery coming up especially, and me not knowing the extent that it's going to be, we'll try fundraising, dance where I can till I can't for a little bit, take my wins where I get them. I recently have been reading this book called Too Young for Cancer by Katie Coleman, and it's a really good insight if you're ever curious about how people feel going through this. Her and I have a similar story in the fact that we were both young, both rare, but our stories are separate. But it's a good insight to kind of see the general feeling of what people go through. So I hope that my story has been able to bring some light to a few things. I'm doing good. I feel good. And I am continuing to hope that I feel good. If you ever need help, find your people. Find joy where you can. Have little protection pendants, anything that helps you feel secure. Because it's your journey, and everyone's journey is different. And there's no wrong way. There's no wrong way. There's no right way to deal with it. So I hope that this can help some people. If people have questions, let me know, and I might have to do another video answering some of those questions. But yeah, fight little wolf, fight. It wants to take a bite out of me, I'll bite back.